Part 63. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 621. After all, you are the title king, Tianxia. You are indeed careless. Nash, who was wearing a blood-red earl's robe, stood upright with his arms folded across his chest, and echoed casually. Tianxia and Nash, these two guys kept saying that they were careless, but they were still calm and unhurried, without any sense of tension or seriousness. Obviously, they still didn't take Sun Yang and others seriously. They were indeed careless before, so it would be enough to be a little more serious next time. And their attitude greatly hurt the dignity of Sun Yang, Jian Wuhan, and others. Sun Yang didn't care. He had climbed up from the bottom, and he had long been accustomed to such scenes, and his character had long been tempered. Jian Wuhan was completely the opposite. The repressed frustration made him almost explode. Sun Yang's eyes were stern, and in order to prevent Jian Wuhan from making mistakes under impulse, he took the initiative to rush towards Tianxia. The two were not far apart. In the blink of an eye, Sun Yang approached Tianxia like lightning, and the sharp dagger was swung out with a sharp sound of breaking wind. At the same time, Tianxia silently took off his top hat. This was not an ordinary hat, but a magician's weapon, a magic hat. Magic hat, guessing game. The black magic hat expanded rapidly, and in an instant it was one person tall, covering Tianxia and splitting it into two. There were two huge magic hats on the scene. Obviously, Tianxia was hiding in one of the magic hats. Tianxia has been obsessed with magic since he was a child, and has almost reached the level of obsession. In a competition, a tragedy occurred because of a prop failure, and he killed his lover with his own hands. From then on, Tianxia's life became gloomy, and he drank to relieve his sorrow every day and was addicted to games. Before the launch of Dream World, he had already made a name for himself in the game field, but at most he was at the king level. It was not until the launch of Dream World that he obtained the magician profession, and then he was able to rise to the top and achieve his current status. Magician, it was tailor-made for him, and he was very comfortable playing it. Sun Yang looked at the two huge hats in front of him with some doubt, and then turned his body sharply. Spinning Stab. Spinning Stab is a multi-stage attack skill, but in fact it only has two stages, one spinning and one stabbing. Sun Yang was ready to destroy the two hats with one move, but there was always a sequence. Sun Yang spun and broke the hat on the left, and black gas came out of it. Sun Yang's move was broken and his health was reduced by half. This is the punishment for guessing wrong. Haha, you guessed wrong. Tianxia came out of another hat and smiled playfully. In fact, he cheated. As a magician, as long as he wanted, no one could guess right, because he had a substitution card. Die. Magic card dart. Tianxia laughed wildly, threw out 5 playing cards with his bare hands, and shot them at Sun Yang. Once the 5 playing cards leave the hand, they spread out in a fan shape. In other words, these 5 playing cards will never hit the same target. But they also block the enemy's way, making it difficult for people to dodge. Of course, this little thing is not difficult for Sun Yang. Asshole! Sun Yang cursed angrily, then hid sideways in the gap between 2 playing cards and dodged perfectly. Seeing this, Tianxia smiled slightly. In fact, this magic card is just a cover to attract Sun Yang's attention. His second magic card has already been used. Magic card Dizzy. Tianxia threw out a golden magic card. Sun Yang was already unable to dodge at this time and was hit, thus entering a dizzy state. Magic card Armor Break. Magic card Critical Hit. Tianxia smiled coldly and threw out 2 playing cards in a row, first breaking Sun Yang's armor, and then killing him gorgeously. Tianxia vs Sun Yang, the whole process actually took 5 seconds, but everyone felt a thrilling feeling when watching. The god of thieves is dead. The enemy is really strong. On the Chinese side, the remaining 10 people were a little nervous when they saw Sun Yang dead. In fact, there were only 2 people on the French side, but Nash and Tianxia were both titled kings. Although they had the advantage in numbers, they still felt tremendous pressure. Suddenly, Xiaorou moved lightly, past the crowd and came to the front line. The staff in her hand was actually used as a long sword, sweeping across the sky, and actually stirred up a circle of withered yellow light waves. That's right, this is imitation withering of all things. Everyone was slightly stunned, and then suddenly realized, and their hearts were agitated. Awesome, Sister Xiaorou actually took the opportunity to imitate Jian Wuhan's withering of all things, which can be a trick on them. Yes, Tianxia broke it once before, and the skill should not have cooled down yet. I don't believe he can break it a second time. Once it succeeds, Nash and Tianxia's all attributes will drop 10 times, and it will be time for us to counterattack. It's so beautiful. Everyone was secretly happy, as if they had foreseen the victory of the battle. On the other side, Nash and Tianxia showed shocked and puzzled expressions. They naturally recognized this withered yellow light wave, which was the withering of all things, but wasn't the withering of all things an additional skill of Jian Wuhan's artifact? Why did that unknown little priest also have it? At the critical moment, Zhao's Hyn.om Tianxia didn't bother to think too much and made a move directly. Magic hat bounce. The black top hat taken off from the top of the head became bigger again, and the hole facing outwards actually absorbed the withered yellow light wave completely, and then bounced back. With a swoosh, in the shocked eyes of Jian Wuhan, Xiaorou, and others, the withered yellow light wave swept over at a faster speed, and the supreme time law seemed to bring them into the next reincarnation. The next moment, Jian Wuhan, Xiaorou, and everyone else all looked old and hunched. All attributes decreased by 10 times. Humph, a bunch of trash, I didn't even make a move, and you can't resist it. Nash folded his hands across his chest, looking at Jian Wuhan and others with a contemptuous expression, and there was a look of disdainful disappointment in his eyes. Jian Wuhan and others felt embarrassed when they heard this. Indeed, from the beginning of the battle, Nash folded his hands across his chest, dodged a few skills at most, but never made a move. In other words, Tianxia alone forced them into this situation. Don't be too proud too early, Overlord Night God is our trump card, but he happened to be away today. Otherwise, you two together are not his opponent. In shame and anger, everyone said almost at the same time. This is not bragging, but speaking from the heart. In their opinion, Ye Chen's strength is so terrifying that there is no limit. Nash and Tianxia are indeed very strong, but they are definitely not Ye Chen's opponents. However, they argued with reason, but Nash and Tianxia were dismissive. It turns out that in addition to being weak, the Chinese also like to brag. It's really disappointing. Tianxia shook his head and snapped his fingers with his bare hands. At the same time, sharp daggers broke out of the ground under the feet of Jian Wuhan and others, piercing their feet, and their HP returned to 0 and died. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 622. There are ruins in the desert of Baiyun City. Although I have a desert camel, I have never had the opportunity to explore it. Now is a chance. Ye Chen thought of the ruins in the desert and smiled slightly. Just as he was about to go, he heard a series of reminders of his teammates' deaths. Google searched Can. What are you doing? You died so cleanly, Ye Chen asked in the team channel in confusion. We broke into the French war zone territory and were defeated by the enemy. Tang said with a wry smile. Oh. Wait, I'll get you back. Ye Chen was in high spirits and could only put the matter of opening up the desert ruins on the back burner. He used the teleporter and teleported directly. World Ocean. A small island near Huaguo Mountain, Ye Chen teleported to the side of the installed reconnaissance device, and then flew out of the island. It took more than 10 minutes to meet up with Sun Yang and others. Then, everyone set off at the same time and flew towards the Mantis Island in front. "Be careful, the enemy is very strong," everyone kept telling. Although they were very confident in Yechen, Nash and Tianxia were not lazy people, so they behaved very cautiously. About 10 minutes into the journey, everyone talked to Yechen about what happened before and the ability of the magician Tianxia. "Oh, that vampire Nash didn't make a move," Yechen was slightly surprised. "Tianxia alone killed Sun Yang, Jian Wuhan, and others, which shows how strong he is. And Nash's strength is even better than Tianxia." "Interesting," Yechen was excited. Arriving at Mantis Island, Yechen installed a reconnaissance device, but found nothing. "It seems that the enemy has left." Yechen shook his head and smiled. "This island is the territory of the French war zone, and they must have installed a reconnaissance device. We come here now, I believe they have noticed it, or we wait for a while," Tank suggested. "Hee, what if they don't come? The winner has no reason to take the loser to heart." Yechen smiled slightly, which immediately made Tank and others blush. "So there is no need for us to wait. They must be ahead. We will meet them sooner or later if we continue to open up new land." Yechen spoke eloquently and his words were convincing. So without stopping, Yechen led the team to continue moving forward. According to the map, Mantis Island was not far from Wanghai, and it was only a day's journey. However, it took Yechen and his team 3 days to see the so-called Wanghai. After all, Yechen and his team also needed to explore some islands on the way and install reconnaissance devices. That's why it took more time than the theoretical time. Is Wanghai ahead? Nothing special. Everyone looked at the ocean in front of them. It was still rugged and there was nothing particularly surprising. Continuing to move forward, everyone was blocked by a barrier that was invisible to the naked eye. The tank rushed the fastest, and it bumped into a bag with a bang when it looked up, and screamed. Yechen stretched out his hands and felt the obstruction of a barrier. "It should be a barrier similar to the one on the Little Man Island, but I don't know how big it is," Yechen said simply, and everyone dispersed and reached out to explore in different directions, but they were all blocked. Sun Yang, Tank, and others didn't believe it, so they jumped into the sea directly, but found that there was also a barrier on the seabed. "There really is a barrier, even fish can't pass through it." Sun Yang and others were on the seabed and could see a layer of glass-like barrier. This barrier could not be seen in the air, but it was visible in the sea water. Suddenly, a great white shark opened its bloody mouth in front and rushed towards Sun Yang and others. With a muffled sound, the great white shark hit the barrier heavily, not only got a lot of lumps on its head, but also fell into a dizzy state. "We found a glass barrier on the seabed. We will lead the way, and you will follow in the air," Sun Yang shouted, leading Tank and others, and rushed forward along the barrier. Yechen led the team in the sky, and flew forward according to the coordinates moved by Sun Yang and others. Since Wanghai exists, there should be a gap in this glass barrier, otherwise no one can enter or leave. Why did Dream World release this map? Isn't it crazy? Because of this idea, Yechen, Sun Yang, and others followed the barrier and finally found a door after about an hour. It was a huge dragon gate, embedded on the barrier. Obviously, passing through the dragon gate will lead to Wanghai. But the dragon gate was closed. In the center of the closed dragon gate, there was a keyhole, which seemed to require some kind of key to open the door. System: no treasure chest. Target found, unlocking cannot be used. Yechen, Sun Yang, Mingtian, Shueisha and others used unlocking, but failed. Strong attack? Yechen's eyes were stern, and he swung his knife and slashed over. With a bang, Yechen was actually shaken open. "Dear adventurers, you need to pass the East Sea Dragon Palace and pass the test of the Dragon King to get the key to the Dragon Gate." Suddenly a strange voice sounded, and Yechen and others looked in the direction of the voice, only to see an inconspicuous old man next to the Dragon Gate. There are people here." Everyone was startled. The old man was too inconspicuous. If he didn't speak, no one would pay attention to him at all. The old man smiled bitterly when he heard it. "Where is the East Sea Dragon Palace?" Ye Chen asked. "Under the sea," the old man replied. Ye Chen nodded, thanked him, and led the team to dive into the seabed, and indeed found a huge copy mirror. It turns out that there are dungeons in the world ocean. Everyone looked at the dungeon mirror image with surprise. If there is a dungeon, you can brush it repeatedly to gain a lot of experience, equipment, materials, etc. This East China Sea Dragon Palace can only be brushed once a day, but Jian Wuhan, Lan Yan, and I all have time turntables, which means that we can brush it 4 times a day. Ye Chen also smiled slightly. You know, the experience of the dungeon is very rich. He was just trying to level up quickly, and it was like a pillow for sleepiness. The first kill in the dungeon must have triggered a world broadcast. Until now, there has been no such world broadcast. I think the first kill of East China Sea Dragon Palace is still there. Sun Yang is eager to try. I didn't meet Nash, Tianxia, and others along the way. They must have entered the dungeon. Ye Chen groaned inwardly, waved his hand, and led the team into the dungeon. System: you found East China Sea Dragon Palace and gained 30,000 points of recognition. As a system prompt sounded, Ye Chen and others came to a magnificent hall. The high platform dragon throne was towering, and a majestic man with dragon horns on his forehead and wearing a yellow dragon robe sat on it. It was the Dragon King of the East China Sea. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sea is a 5-clawed golden dragon, which is the realm of the middle god. With high-density insight, Ye Chen and others quickly obtained some of his information. Dragon King of the East China Sea, middle god. Level 100. HP, 500 trillion / 500 trillion. Skills. Law of power. Number of believers, 100,000. Remarks: the divine clone of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 623. The Avatar of the Middle God, the Law of Power, and 100,000 believers. This is a bit difficult to handle. Sun Yang narrowed his eyes after understanding the attributes of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. Everyone also had a big headache. When Hydra fought, everyone complained a lot. In the end, almost all the followers of Hydra were killed before taking down Hydra. The Dragon King of the East China Sea is the middle god. Even if it is just a clone of the god, it is 5 times more powerful than the Hydra. If there are 100,000 more, it will be even more difficult to deal with. Adventurers, if you want to go to the main sea, show your strength to me. The Dragon King of the East China Sea smiled boldly, lifted his dragon robe, and in a moment, thousands of shrimp soldiers and crab generals appeared in front of Ye Chen and others. At the same time, the wall behind the Dragon King of the East China Sea turned into a dragon gate. The Dragon King of the East China Sea passed through the dragon gate and disappeared. Everyone was not surprised but delighted. It was extremely difficult to directly defeat the Dragon King of the East China Sea. But now, it seemed that he was in the mode of breaking through the level, clearing several rooms, killing all the believers, and finally facing the Dragon King of the East China Sea. Beat the middle god who has no believers. Well, there should be a chance. Ye Chen had a headache before, but now that he sees the situation clearly, he can concentrate and relax. Roar! Raging war cries sounded, and countless shrimp soldiers and crab generals, holding steel forks, rushed towards them. Sea of fire! Ye Chen casually lit a sea of fire, instantly accumulating combo points, then launched a storm of destruction and galloped out. Countless flame darts swept out wildly, each flame dart inflicted more than 10 billion damage, which was extremely terrifying. 3 seconds passed, and thousands of shrimps, soldiers, and crabs would all fall down and turn into a mountain of rich trophies. Hiss, boss, you are doing wrong harm. Everyone's eyes went blank and they suddenly gasped. Of course they knew that Yuchin's damage was off the charts, but in the past few days during the destruction storm, each flame dart only did billions of damage. Now it has exceeded tens of billions. It has improved several times, which is incredible. You know, increasing damage is like upgrading, the further you go, the harder it becomes. Ruhian Wuhan, although he has been getting stronger, until now, his ultimate attack is barely 1 billion. Of course he wanted to continue to improve, but his base, fighting spirit, critical hits, etc. were all piled up, and he encountered a deep bottleneck. It's impossible to make any progress at all. And Yuchin seems to have no bottleneck, and every improvement is doubled, which makes Jian Wuhan so jealous that he vomits blood. Yechen smiled slightly, but did not hide anything. He slowly told the story of going to the Water Curtain Cave to invite Brother Monkey to fight and steal the treasures of heaven and earth. More than 10 kinds of natural and earthly treasures, each of which has an amplification effect not inferior to that of the Dragon Balls. Yuchin smiled slightly. What? More than 10 kinds? Not inferior to Dragon Ball. Sun Yang and Jian Wuhan were shocked again. Others didn't know the amplifying effect of Dragon Balls, but they knew it because they had eaten it. The power of Dragon Ball, strength, intelligence, and other attributes, each increase by 10,000 points. And Yuchin secretly ate more than 10 kinds of food, which meant that his strength, intelligence, etc. increased by hundreds of thousands of points. Envy, jealousy, and hatred. Sun Yang and Jian Wuhan had wry smiles on their faces, but they didn't complain that Yechen didn't bring them any. Yechen is by no means a stingy person. If he has any good things, he is willing to share them. But there are only 2 or 3 of each of those natural and earthly treasures. Yuchin can just eat them once by himself. If he continues to pick them, wouldn't those natural and earthly treasures become extinct? If he was really in that situation, Brother Monkey would have to kill him alive. As all the shrimps, soldiers, and crabs were wiped out in the first level, there was a bang sound, and the closed dragon door bounced open. After quickly distributing the spoils, Yuchin led the team through the dragon gate and came to the second room. Still a bunch of shrimp soldiers and crab generals, but more powerful. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the first room are all world elites, with only over 1 million HP. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the second room are all world leaders with up to tens of millions of HP. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the third room are all world lords. They are already sub-sage and have over 100 million HP. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the fourth room are all the world's golden lords, with HP exceeding 1 billion. Yuchin led the team to crush them all the way without any hindrance. After clearing the fourth room, the dragon door of the boss room opened. There is a gantry on each side of the boss gantry, which is still closed. While cleaning the loot in the fourth room, Yechen found 2 keys, one red and one blue, which seemed to be the keys to open the 2 closed dragon doors. Nash, Tianxia, and those guys are fighting for the first kill with us. Time is running out, so just go for the boss, Tank suggested. No, the Dragon King of the East China Sea has a total of 100,000 believers. We came here and killed almost 40,000 believers. Yechen pondered slightly and said, to be honest, I am not sure about the Dragon King of the East China Sea, which has 60,000 followers. Well, let's push these 2 gates first. Maybe the remaining 60,000 believers are hiding in these 2 dragon gates. Yechen, with your strength, you can kill him instantly. It won't waste much time. Jian Wuhan nodded, thinking that Yuchin's speculation is more reasonable. Next, Yuchin took the red key and opened the red dragon door. Suddenly, there was a burst of suction, and Yechen and others were forcibly pulled into the red dragon gate. Looking around, they saw a golden and magnificent scene. This is also a main hall, more spacious and full of grandeur. As expected by Ye Chen, there were 30,000 soldiers and generals in this room. On the dragon throne on the high platform, Zaishin.C sat a young man with dragon horns on his forehead. He was not the Dragon King of the East China Sea, but the Dragon Prince. Dragon Prince, Lower God. Level 100. HP, 50 MB / 50 MB. Skill. Law of Fire Element. Number of believers, 0. Notes, Dragon Prince's divine clone. The Dragon Prince is a lower level god, and his true form is obviously a three-clawed golden dragon. Although he has taken the form and mastered the laws, he has no followers. And he is just a clone now, probably only half of Xiao Jin's strength. You are very smart and did not enter my father's room directly, because otherwise, you would be torn to pieces by my father. Prince Long talked eloquently and gave directions, come to me and kill the believers first. It is indeed the most correct choice, but the prince's divine power is not that easy to deal with. Roar. Just as Prince Long finished speaking, a dragon roar sounded, and Xiao Jin flew out from Ye Chen's neck. His body quickly grew in size, reaching 10 meters in length. Three-clawed golden dragon, Prince Long was shocked. He didn't expect to meet someone of the same race here. He himself is a three-clawed golden dragon, but he is currently a clone and cannot defeat Xiao Jin. Three-clawed golden dragon, what's your name? Xiao Jin. Haha, Xiao Jin, I didn't expect you to surrender to a human being. I would like to see what that human being is capable of. Like other mythical beasts, Prince Long was very puzzled and shocked that Xiao Jin surrendered to Ye Chen. After all, Ye Chen was just a sanctuary. But he didn't laugh at it. As a member of the Golden Dragon clan, he was naturally so proud of the Golden Dragon. Since he chose to surrender to Ye Chen, there must be a reason. Suddenly, Prince Long's eyes looked at Ye Chen deeply. Please remember the first domain name of this book. Gulatu mobile version reading website. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 624. Roar. With a dragon roar, the dragon prince transformed into a three-clawed golden dragon, 10 meters long like Xiao Jin. Although he mastered the law of fire element, he had almost no amplification without believers. And at this moment, he was just a clone of God, and he also knew that he was no match for Xiao Jin. However, as long as he killed Ye Chen first, Xiao Jin, the latter's pet, would naturally disappear. There is a chance. The dragon prince used the power of the law of fire element to transform into a flaming dragon, rushing towards Ye Chen, and spewing out raging flames. When the flames came, Ye Chen took the initiative to resist to avoid affecting others. -152. -152. -152. -152. The dense damage came out, and the whole audience was shocked. It was really jaw-dropping that even though it was just a clone of God, it could only hit more than 100 points of such insignificant damage when attacking Ye Chen, which was as strong as a lower god. Isn't Ye Chen's defense too terrifying? Everyone opened their mouths wide and roared, their jaws almost dropped to the ground in fear. In fact, it's not just defense, but also resistance. Especially fire resistance. Ye Chen's fire resistance is now as high American Samoa 72030. In disguise, it weakens the Dragon Prince's damage by more than 700 times. Coupled with Ye Chen's terrifying defense, such an effect can be achieved. Blade Storm. Suddenly, Ye Chen turned into a battle gyroscope and spun out. The sword energy forcibly split the flames into two halves, and finally hit the Dragon Prince's chin, stiffening and absorbing it. Such a powerful force, this prince's golden dragon body can't resist it. The Dragon Prince raised his head, fell into a stiff state, unable to move, and even spoke a little intermittently. Then, Ye Chen closed his move and lit the Sea of Fire, burning the Dragon Prince. After all, the Dragon Prince is a fire dragon who masters the law of the fire element. Although he has no faith, his fire resistance is also quite high. Ye Chen's Sea of Fire didn't do much damage, but it provided Ye Chen with a steady stream of combo points. Next, Ye Chen threw out his finishing moves crazily, and each move would cause a thrilling damage value to appear on the head of the Dragon Prince. -680042840942. -529304392813. -620323919191. -100328281730. All of them were over 500 billion, and the strongest back-piercing heart directly broke the trillion, which was extremely terrifying. Ye Chen was extremely fast, and when the Dragon Kiss was swung, the sword light flashed, and he threw out several finishing moves in a second. This undoubtedly enhanced the ultimate explosive power. In just 1 second, it could strongly cut off several trillion lives of the Dragon Prince. But the endurance was reduced accordingly. The Sea of Fire has been lit, and Ye Chen doesn't have to worry about combo points at all, because it is always full. The damage from the Sea of Fire, the burn caused by the Ring of Burning Heart, and even, as Ye Chen's bleeding like a stream level increase, he often makes the enemy bleed. These three kinds of damage are not high, but they can perfectly guarantee combo points. However, Ye Chen has combo points, but the cooling time of various finishing moves can't keep up. The cooling time of the finishing blow is the cooling time of basic skills, such as stun, throat smear, stab, spinning stab, etc. Every time Ye Chen fights seriously, he will first use a bottle of high-level mental stimulant elixir to have the cooling time of all skills. But even so, it can't keep up with Ye Chen's speed. After throwing a set of finishing moves, Ye Chen couldn't keep up. Unlike before, he was slow and could release them in a loop. Eating various natural treasures, Ye Chen's speed has increased by who knows how many times. Sure enough, everything has its pros and cons. So, after Ye Chen threw a set of finishing moves, he could only use ordinary skills, such as Boomerang, Stun Dart, 7-star Ultimate, 1000 Needles, Poisonous Dragon Thorn, etc. He even used ordinary attacks. There was no other way, the attack speed was so fast that the CD of various skills could not keep up with the rhythm. But the game emphasizes instant damage. In addition to the attack speed, Ye Chen now uses ordinary attacks to slash more than 10 times in 1 second. He can also deal hundreds of billions of damage in 1 second. Although it is far less than the finishing move, it is still a good damage. And whether the enemy can be hit into stiffness has nothing to do with the damage. Only strength and intelligence. Ye Chen's strength is so high that he can completely break the stiffness of the Dragon Prince, so even if Ye Chen uses ordinary attacks, it is enough to hit the Dragon Prince into a state of cyclic stiffness. The Flame Dragon was hit by Ye Chen's chin in mid-air, and it was pushed up and lifted up step by step, making it unable to move and screaming. Prince Long has lost his ability to resist, focus fire, Jian Wuhan roared, and all the members attacked at the same time, together with Ye Chen and Xiao Jin, bombarding Prince Long. Prince Long's HP continued to drop. According to the team damage output table, Ye Chen was the leader, far ahead of everyone else. His damage per second was more than 1,000 times higher than the whole team combined. Invincible, the damage of all of us combined is less than 1,000th of Ye Chen's. In the same game, I never thought that the gap between us could reach this level. In shock, Hashian. Everyone couldn't help but sigh excitedly. Sun Yang and Jian Wuhan clenched their fists and were stunned. Ye Chen's strength made them feel a huge pressure, especially Sun Yang. He looked at the back of Ye Chen attacking the Dragon Prince in front of him, and felt that his back was getting taller and taller, as if it had its own pressure, which made people breathless. Because of his admiration for Ye Chen, Sun Yang has come to today's position. He has always wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ye Chen. It is no exaggeration to say that he has now achieved it. The only two title kings in the Chinese theater, Overlord and Thief God, are Ye Chen and him. He has stood at the top, standing shoulder to shoulder with Ye Chen, overlooking the world. However, Ye Chen seemed to have no bottleneck, and was still making progress and improving. In an instant, he opened a huge gap with him, which made people sweat in their palms and extremely nervous. As time passed, 3 minutes passed quickly, and the Dragon Prince's life returned to zero. He fell to the ground with a wail, stirring up smoke and dust. When the smoke dissipated, Ye Chen looked intently, but found that the Dragon Prince had not exploded anything. Tisk, because it is a clone, there is not even a copper coin, someone began to complain. After all, the clone is a clone, and it is impossible for it to carry the quest items. Everyone knows this. But now we are brushing the dungeon. Killing a small boss, there is no gain, which makes everyone feel unhappy. The boss, the Dragon King of the East Sea, is also the clone of God. In the end, killing him will not drop anything. Tank suddenly thought of something and screamed. I don't know, but at least it will drop the Dragon Gate key to the main sea, Ye Chen said, and he was also muttering in his heart. In addition to the Dragon Gate key, the Dragon King of the East Sea may really not drop anything. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 625. In the palace of the Dragon Prince, all the 30,000 soldiers and crab generals had been swallowed up by the aftermath of the war. At this moment, Prince Long was also dead, and with a clang sound, the Dragon Gate bounced open again. Everyone cleaned up the loot that the shrimp soldiers and crab generals exploded, then walked out of the Red Dragon Gate and entered the Blue Dragon Gate again. Inside the Blue Dragon Gate, there is also a splendid palace. The fragrance inside is so fragrant that it is actually the palace of the Dragon Girl. Searched can on Google. Dragon Girl, Lower God. Level 100. HP, 50 MB / 50 MB. Skill. Law of Ice Element. Number of believers, 0. Notes, Dragon Girl's divine clone. The Dragon Girl is dressed in ice blue plain clothes, with a graceful figure and a delicate face. There are also 2 dragon horns on the smooth forehead. Behind this palace, there are also 30,000 shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Ye Chen rushed forward with a single step, quickly attacked and knocked the Dragon Girl into a frozen state. Using almost the same routine, everyone began to focus their fire. Another 3 minutes passed, and Dragon Girl and 30,000 shrimp soldiers and crabs were all dead. However, Dragon Girl was a clone, and still not even a copper coin exploded. We have killed 100,000 believers. The Dragon King of the East China Sea should have no power of faith. I don't know if the clone of the Middle God can win, Ye Chen muttered to himself. The Dragon King of the East China Sea is a 5-clawed golden dragon, which is the Middle God. A god. If it were his true form, it would be 10 times more powerful than Xiao Jin. Now that the Dragon King of the East China Sea is just a clone, it would be 5 times more powerful, with more than 5 trillion damage. Ye Chen didn't know if he could withstand it with his own defense. In the boss room, Ye Chen led a team to break in, and sure enough they found that the Dragon King of the East China Sea was the only one in this huge palace. Once again, I looked into its attributes and found that the number of its followers was 0. Congratulations to you, you have killed all the soldiers and generals in this dragon palace, reducing my damage by hundreds of times. The Dragon King of the East China Sea looked at Ye Chen and the others, with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. Obviously, if Ye Chen did not defeat the Dragon Prince and Dragon Girl, then the Dragon King of East China Sea would have 60,000 followers, which is also an increase of hundreds of times. In that case, Ye Chen would definitely be powerless. Let's get started. If you defeat this king, you can get the key to the Dragon Gate and reach Wanghai smoothly. The Dragon King of the East China Sea lifted up his long sleeves and talked eloquently. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuchen rushed towards the Dragon King of the East China Sea. To be honest, even if the Dragon King of the East China Sea had no followers, Yuchen was not 100% sure of being able to withstand it, so he struck first and tried to use the powerful force to put him into a state of cyclic stiffness. Yuchen's speed was incredibly fast. In the blink of an eye, Yuchen had already rushed in front of the Dragon King of the East China Sea, making the Dragon King of the East China Sea stunned. At this moment, Yuchen took the opportunity to attack crazily, but the Dragon King of the East China Sea was as motionless as a mountain, like an iron pillar nailed there. No matter how Yuchen attacked, he did not change his expression. The strength is very good. In the realm of the Holy Realm, in terms of strength, it is almost the same as the current king. It is worthy of praise. Unfortunately, it still cannot break my stubbornness. The Dragon King of the East China Sea talked eloquently. After all, he is only a god now. If the clone is the original, its power is about twice that of Yuchen. Moreover, the Dragon King of the East China Sea controls the law of power. If 100,000 believers are still there, the power of the Dragon King of the East China Sea will be further increased by 500,000 points. You and I are equally powerful. I am strong enough to withstand your strength, but can your strength be able to withstand my strength? The Dragon King of the East China Sea transformed into a 5-clawed golden dragon with a length of 10 meters, and his aura suddenly became fierce. A dragon claw swung out. Yuchen quickly held Dragon Kiss horizontally and blocked it. In the fierce collision, sparks flew everywhere and metal roared. Feeling the violent power of the Dragon King of the East China Sea, Yuchen's heart trembled. First, his mouth went numb, and then he was directly lifted up by the violent power. His body exploded in mid-air, and yellow sand splashed everywhere. Yuchen and the Dragon King of the East China Sea are equally powerful. But the Dragon King of the East China Sea is much harder than Yuchen. After a collision, a verdict was reached. Yuchen's defense was good, but he was hit hard by the Dragon King of the East China Sea and only lost more than 50 million blood. You must know that the attack power of the Dragon King of the East China Sea is calculated in megabytes. When attacking Yuchen, he only hit tens of millions, which shows the terror of Yuchen's defense. Of course, even so, after suffering more than 50 million damage, Yuchen also consumed the sand clone. Tank, elemental change, fire. Yuchen handed over the sand clone, teleported a distance, and shouted loudly. Tank was shocked when he heard this, and 4 small lightsabers of different colors suddenly appeared above his head. He selected a flaming small lightsaber and shot it towards the Dragon King of the East China Sea. It did not cause any damage, but only deflected the attack of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. Transform into a fire attribute attack. The Dragon King of the East China Sea suddenly didn't realize it. He opened his dragon's mouth and shot the golden dragon bullet towards Yuchen. Unfortunately, the golden dragon bullet completely turned into a dragon flame bullet, hitting Yuchen, but only inflicted hundreds of thousands of damage. Yuchen's fire resistance was so high that the damage dealt by the Dragon King of the East China Sea plummeted 500 times again. But damage is damage. Yuchen shouldered a dragon flame bomb. Although it didn't hang, it was knocked away. It hit the wall with a bang, and the wall quickly cracked and exploded, causing smoke and dust to billow. Zayashyak. The weapons are hardened, the dragon mark, the tyrannical dragon mark, and even the indestructible body are all turned on. Is it still hard to withstand the strength of more than 17,000? Yuchen climbed out of the collapsed wall, feeling overwhelmed. He now has over 3 million HP, which is rare among players, because the average Sanctuary player has only about 100,000 HP. He is far beyond that. It doesn't matter if he receives more than 100,000 damage at this time, but what should he do if he is often knocked away or stiffened by the Dragon King of the East Sea? While thinking, the Dragon King of the East Sea instantly fired a Dragon Flame Bomb, with more than 100,000 HP per shot, which continuously blasted Yechen back, and the wall exploded inch by inch, more than 10 meters. Damn it, no matter what, just fight. Yechen gritted his teeth secretly and put all 10 skill points on the Vajra Indestructible Body in one breath. Vajra Indestructible Body instantly upgraded to LV11. Blood loss. Because the Vajra Indestructible Body is only LV1, it is easy to upgrade in the early stage. He directly used skill points, which was quite disadvantageous. But at this moment, he couldn't care so much, so he had to increase stiffness. Although Yechen could dodge the attack of the Dragon King of the East Sea by using the Shadow Assassination technique, he could dodge, but Tank and others could not. Now, in order to deal with the Dragon King of the East China Sea, he still relies on his teammates, especially the elemental changes of the Shield Warrior. So he can only fight hard. Very good, the stiffness is over 40,000. Yechen smiled slightly. Because of the percentage increase of the dragon pattern and the blood tree, the indestructible body was upgraded to level 10. It should only increase 10,000 points of stiffness, but now it has increased by more than 20,000 points. And with the upgrade of the indestructible body, Yechen's defense power soared again. Come again, Yechen roared and rushed towards the Dragon King of the East China Sea. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 626. As an assassin, Yechen rarely sneaks up on others, but often fights head-on. Perhaps in the eyes of others, it feels a bit like putting the cart before the horse. Google searched Can. But this is the path Yechen wants to take, the strongest assassin in the server. Since the goal is to be the strongest, all aspects must be taken into account. He has already reached a certain height. The opponents he encounters, whether they are players, NPCs, or even monsters, are all powerful and terrifying. It is not possible to kill them in 1 or 2 waves by sneaking. If Yechen follows the routine and takes the ordinary path, he may not have today's achievements, let alone achieve the great goal of being the strongest in the server. Yechen develops almost in all aspects, including damage, defense, speed, etc. Of course, he also has a school, that is, the extreme instant kill flow. No matter what, he pursues extreme burst damage. Yechen stood in the air. With the upgrade of his indestructible body, a layer of faint dark gold light flowed on his body, which made him look extremely powerful. The indestructible body is a passive skill, which means that he will be in this form in the future. Visually, it can give people a lot of pressure. The Dragon King of the East China Sea transformed into a 10-meter-long 5-clawed golden dragon. He stared at Yechen and was slightly stunned. With a roar, the huge dragon tail blew up the air, producing a series of fire clouds, and whipped towards Yechen. Why did the fire cloud appear? Because he was designated by the tank's element change and turned into a fire attribute attack. The dragon tail whipped so fast that it carried violent energy in an instant and whipped Yechen fiercely. With a muffled bang, the fire wave rolled out. -94,028. The damage emerged, and as Yechen's defense was further improved, the damage of the Dragon King of the East China Sea became lower and lower. More importantly, Yechen's stiffness now exceeded 40,000, and he could finally withstand the power of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. After being whipped violently, Yechen stood still like a mountain and stood firmly. Overlord has over 3 million HP, I really don't know how he got it. I'm a level 90 shield warrior, but I only have 250,000 HP. Taishan's mouth twitched, and he sighed helplessly. As a shield warrior, the most powerful thing is life and defense, but these 2 points that Taishan is proud of are far surpassed by Ye Chen, which really makes him feel so painful. Not only is his defense high and his blood thick, Ye Chen also has the ability to suck blood. As long as the enemy can't kill him instantly, he is almost invincible. Jian Wuhan was also moved. As Jian Wuhan said, Ye Chen has the ability to suck blood, which can restore 10% of the damage he hits. In other words, the higher the damage of Ye Chen, the stronger the blood-sucking effect. Nowadays, Ye Chen's damage is so high that even ordinary attacks have billions of damage, and 10% has hundreds of millions. In other words, almost every knife can restore HP to full. Previously, Ye Chen suffered from insufficient stiffness and would be knocked away and stiffened by the Dragon King of the East China Sea. In this way, he was unable to move, but now he was able to truly withstand the attack of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. What was there to be afraid of? Suddenly, Ye Chen fought back frantically. When the dragon kiss was waving, the flash of swords and shadows of swords and swords collided with the strong body of the Dragon King of the East China Sea, and a curtain of fire rose to the sky, and the sound of explosions rolled. In addition, the indestructible body of the diamond can rebound part of the damage when attacked at close range. As the level increases, this rebound becomes stronger and stronger. I saw that the dragon claws of the Dragon King of the East China Sea hit Ye Chen repeatedly. Although Ye Chen was motionless, his body surface was hit by a series of shock waves. Sun Yang, Jian Wuhan, Tank, and others who were dozens of meters away were all blown by the strong wind generated by the shock wave, and their hair stood up and their robes rustled. -25,300. -25,300. -25,300. Although the Dragon King of the East China Sea was not afraid of the shockwave at close range, he would also be hurt. The damage was not high, only 25,300 points. Ye Chen was stunned. This 25,300 damage, by chance, was exactly 11% of his basic attack power. And the Vajra indestructible body was exactly LV11. Ye Chen concluded that, in other words, any melee attack on him would rebound an attack wave, dealing 11% of the basic attack damage. With the basic upgrade of the Vajra indestructible body, the damage of the shockwave will inevitably increase, and even. Ye Chen suddenly remembered that when he attacked Monkey Brother, the artifact Dragon Kiss was broken. Maybe, after the Vajra indestructible body reaches a certain level, the recoil force can even destroy the enemy's weapons. Ye Chen was ecstatic, and immediately restrained his mind and focused on attacking the Dragon King of the East China Sea. Ye Chen's damage was so high that he output more than 1 trillion per second. As time passed, the Dragon King of the East China Sea was covered with wounds and became weaker and weaker, with less than 50 trillion life left. Jian Wuhan, come with a wave of all things decaying, Ye Chen held back a set of finishing moves and did not release them. Seeing that the time was right, he shouted at Jian Wuhan. Upon hearing this, Jian Wuhan immediately cast all things decay, and the supreme time law defense brought the Dragon King of the East Sea into the next reincarnation, making him extremely old, and all attributes decreased by 10 times. HP, less than 5 trillion. Star Shock. Kill. Double Blade. Backstab. Poison Dragon Thorn. Thousand Needle Slaughter. Storm of Destruction. -560048270082. -748292004821. -847293094001. -10482940210113. -398402919381. In less than 3 seconds, WW. Zayasan.c Ye Chen used a whole set of skills to kill the Dragon King of the East China Sea. The latter howled miserably, and his huge body fell to the ground with a bang. Countless items exploded in the smoke and dust. And those items flashed with colorful rays of light at the same time, which was beautiful and palpitating. Damn! BG has appeared. The clone exploded a bunch of artifacts and god-level items. Looking at the rich colorful rays of light in front of them, everyone's hearts trembled and roared. Yachen's heart also jumped suddenly, and he quickly landed on the ground to check, but found that this push of so-called artifacts and god-level items were all keys. Dragon Gate Key. After using it, you can pass through the Dragon Gate connecting Wanghai. I'm so happy for nothing. Sure enough, the clone can't explode anything. Yachen shook his head and smiled. This Dragon Gate Key is equivalent to a task item. It's normal for the clone to explode. Yachen took a rough look and found that there were at least 300 Dragon Gate Keys. Unlike what Yachen imagined, he originally thought that the Dragon Gate Key could open the Dragon Gate, but in fact, it only gave him the right to pass through the Dragon Gate. If the Dragon Gate is opened, anyone can enter. If he only has the right to pass through the Dragon Gate, one key corresponds to one player. In this way, it is very normal to have more than 300 Dragon Gate keys. Because this East Sea Dragon Palace copy is one of the top copies, with the highest commander value of 20,000. In other words, this is originally a copy for 20,000 people. Although Yachen only brought more than 30 people to brush it, the income is about the same. This Dragon Gate key can be traded, and it will be sold at a terrifying price. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 627. World Broadcast. Congratulations to players Yeshen, Sun Yang, Jian Wuhan, for completing the first kill of Eastern Sea Dragon Palace, and the additional rewards are as follows: experience value add 5 billion, 1000 gold coins, 5 skill points. Team leader Yeshen gets 5 additional skill points. System: congratulations on clearing Eastern Sea Dragon Palace and opening the Hell mode of Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. As Yachen killed the Dragon King of the East Sea, it directly triggered the world broadcast, and the whole team received extremely generous rewards. Afterwards, Yachen couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. He should have filled the 20,000 person team earlier. Hell mode, we've opened the Hell mode. Well, the Dragon King, the Dragon Prince, and the Dragon Girl in the Hell mode must be the real one. After a brief shock, everyone speculated. Then just brush the Hell mode and get another first kill. Yachen smiled slightly, cleared the Dragon Gate key, and led the team out of the dungeon. Then, he used the commander to form a 20,000 man group, bringing together the elite members of the 3 major guilds, the Throne, the Merchant Alliance, and the King. A team teleportation forced all the new members to come over. The levels of those people were in the range of 75-77, not the Holy Land, and they could not stand calmly in the deep sea. Feeling the strong water pressure in the deep sea, they all covered their mouths and noses with their hands, kicked their legs wildly, and looked embarrassed and funny. Even, damage began to appear on their heads, and blood continued to drop. Yachen did not dare to stay any longer, and directly led a large army to kill into the Hell mode. About 10 minutes later, Nash and Tianxia had gloomy faces and left the dungeon with a mighty large army. They also cleared the East Sea Dragon Palace, but did not get the first kill, which made them very frustrated. You know, they entered the dungeon before Yachen and others, and in the end, Yachen took away the first kill, which made them shocked and angry. That Thief God and Jian Wuhan are both very ordinary. They got our first kill just because Overlord Yeshen joined the team fight. It can be seen that Overlord is very powerful. As arrogant as Tianxia, his face became solemn. Nash also looked serious and nodded when he heard the words. A battle is inevitable. I want to see how powerful the Overlord is. Nash suddenly showed a grim smile. Since there is still a Hell mode, Yachen must have led the team to fight. He guessed this point, and immediately prepared to wait for Ye Chen to come out and fight to the death. "You can't stand the water pressure in the deep sea, go back," Nash said indifferently. He brought a large group here, originally wanting to get the first kill, so that many of his men could get some experience and skill points. Now that he didn't get the first kill, he wanted to defeat Ye Chen and vent his anger. Hearing this, the large army was like being pardoned, like four-legged fish, swimming towards the sea. There was no way. The strong water pressure of the deep sea hurt them, and they fell into an attacking state and could not return to the city. 1 minute later, the large army left, and only more than 60 people including Nash and Tianxia were left before the copy mirror of East China Sea Dragon Palace. These more than 60 people are all holy domains, and they can fully withstand the deep sea water pressure. At this moment, they all stood with their chests folded, waiting for the upcoming war. On the other side, Ye Chen led a large army into the hell mode of East China Sea Dragon Palace and slaughtered all the way. Even the Dragon Palace belongs to the range of the deep sea. The large army could not withstand it and lost blood one after another. After opening up several rooms in a row, the large army was completely wiped out, and Ye Chen did not care. The large army was not even a holy domain, and he did not expect them to contribute. Bringing them here is nothing more than helping them to mix some experience and skill points. In the hell mode, even the shrimp soldiers and crab generals have increased, and occasionally 1 or 2 super saints will pop up, but Ye Chen is still seconds. It took about half an hour for Ye Chen to lead the team into the room of the Dragon Prince. As expected, the Dragon Prince in hell mode was indeed the lower level god, leading as many as 100,000 shrimp soldiers and crab generals. But Ye Chen still killed him easily. What about the lower level god? As long as there is no power of faith, he will not take it seriously at all. With the death of the Dragon Prince, piles of items burst out, among which there was an item flashing colorful rays of light. Ye Chen walked over and took a look, and was overjoyed. It turned out to be the original godhead of the fire element. Ye Chen has not yet become a god, but he has been working hard for it. After becoming a god, he will definitely step into the god realm to kill gods crazily, plunder more original godheads, strive to master all laws, and become an almighty god. Of course, that is a later story, and it is also extremely difficult. After all, even if the original godhead explodes after swallowing and refining, there is only a certain probability of mastering the law. It is possible that you may not be able to achieve it even after playing for a few years. Before that, the law that Ye Chen wanted most was the law of the fire element. After playing with the fire power for so long, he has gotten used to it. In addition, the artifact ring, the burning heart ring, doubles the fire damage. Ye Chen is naturally unwilling to give up this amplification power. Now that the fire element origin godhead is in hand, although it may not necessarily master the fire element law after devouring and refining, there is always a certain probability, and Ye Chen is delighted. Following the method of making artillery, Ye Chen led the team to easily defeat the Dragon Girl. Halcyon.cm. As the Dragon Girl's body fell to the ground, a large number of items also exploded, including a colorful glow. Tisk tisk, the hell mode is generous enough. Looking at the colorful glow, everyone's eyes flashed with joy, and they all walked up to check. Dragon Girl Ice Staff, Artifact / growth. Level 80. Magic Attack Power, 8500 9000. Intelligence add 8000. Spirit add 8000. Physical Strength add 6000. Strength add 6000. Agility add 4000. Ice Attribute Attack. Ice Attribute Enhancement add 4000. Ice Attribute Resistance add 12,000. Special Effects, Ice Array LV10. Special Effect, Ice Array Chanting Time -50%. Note, bound items cannot be traded, destroyed, or stolen. Another artifact staff. Before swiping Hydra, Sun Yang stole a Hydra's staff. Because the artifact could not be traded, it kept hitting Sun Yang's hands, he had to wait for the water to repel. And this Dragon Girl ice staff is still an ownerless thing, so Lan Yan picked it up with excitement. This Dragon Girl ice staff is tailor-made for him. Not only the damage will skyrocket, but the ice barrier will also be even more powerful. Let's go to the last room. Lan Yan took away the Dragon Girl's ice staff, and everyone among them quickly cleaned up the loot. Ye Chen waved his hand and led the team into the last room. After entering, everyone's eyes widened and their faces were covered in cold sweat. It turns out that in the Hell Mode boss room of East China Sea Dragon Palace, in addition to the East China Sea Dragon King, there are also a large number of shrimp soldiers and crab generals. The Dragon King of the East China Sea that everyone is facing now is not only his true form, but also possesses the power of faith. Please remember the first domain name of this book. Giladu mobile version reading website. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 628. The East Sea Dragon King in Hell Mode has completely changed his appearance, looking majestic and powerful. This is also normal. The ordinary level East Sea Dragon Palace is mainly to test the level of adventurers, and the reward for passing the level is just the Dragon Gate key. When players enter the Hell Mode, it is equivalent to challenging the majesty of the East Sea Dragon King himself. The East Sea Dragon King did not say any extra nonsense. He raised his big hand and a big storm emerged. In an instant, Ye Chen and others were blown up by the big storm and suffered huge damage. Almost all of them were killed instantly. Ye Chen handed over the sand clone and was the only survivor. In short, we must kill all the believers first before we can win, Ye Chen groaned, and a huge dark river emerged around him. The next moment, Ye Chen seemed to be immersed in the shadow cast by the dark river and disappeared. The East Sea Dragon King's eyes were stern. The next moment, Ye Chen cast a sea of fire, burning shrimp soldiers and crab generals, accumulating combo points. Then the destructive storm strangled the shrimp soldiers and crab generals crazily. At this time, Ye Chen entered the attack state. Even in the dark river, his figure was still visible. Golden Dragon Bomb. The Dragon King of the East Sea transformed into a 10-meter-long 5-clawed golden dragon. The dragon's eyes locked Ye Chen's coordinates and opened his dragon's eyes to shoot out a thick golden energy cannon. However, although Ye Chen showed his figure, he could still teleport in the dark river. Swish! Ye Chen flashed and passed by the rapidly shot golden energy cannon. Golden Dragon Bomb. Golden Dragon Bomb. Golden Dragon Bomb. The Dragon King of the East Sea trembled, and then instantly fired golden dragon bombs, intensively shooting at Ye Chen. Swish, swish, swish. Ye Chen teleported crazily, and every time he narrowly avoided the golden energy cannon. If you look closely, it is not difficult to find that a fat skylark has appeared on Ye Chen's shoulder. Ye Chen and this little guy were in sync with each other. Its 500-point perception made Ye Chen seem to have eyes on his back. He didn't need to turn around to see the attack direction of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. He could sense it and teleport away. At the same time, the battle gyroscope was still spinning, shooting countless flaming darts, sweeping 360 degrees indiscriminately. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals around wailed and fell in groups. Soon 3 seconds passed, the destruction storm cooled down, and there were less than 10,000 shrimp soldiers and crab generals left out of the 100,000. Ye Chen continued to move, teleporting to avoid the attack of the Dragon King of the East China Sea, while frantically harvesting shrimp soldiers and crab generals, with swords and shadows flashing continuously. Without the destruction storm, his harvesting efficiency dropped sharply, but it still took only half a minute to clear the last 10,000 shrimp soldiers and crab generals. At this moment, only Ye Chen and the Dragon King of the East China Sea were left in the entire hall. Without Tank's elemental change, the attack attribute of the Dragon King of the East Sea cannot be changed, so his damage is still terrifyingly high. Although the followers of the Dragon King of the East Sea were cleared, Ye Chen was not happy and his face was still serious. If Tank was still there, he would use elemental change to change the Dragon King of the East Sea to fire a tribute attack. Then Ye Chen's fire resistance of more than 70,000 would be able to greatly weaken the damage of the Dragon King of the East Sea. Counting the firepower of the Dragon King of the East Sea, at least 500 times the damage would be reduced. Unfortunately, Tank had died long ago. He was the only one left in the 20,000 man group. Ye Chen's fire resistance and defense were amazing. At the beginning, the Dragon King of the East Sea clone, which was designated by Tank as a fire attribute attack, could only deal 80,000 to 90,000 damage to Ye Chen. Ye Chen's high fire resistance offset more than 500 times the damage of the Dragon King of the East Sea clone. In other words, the Dragon King of the East Sea clone with no attribute attack should be able to cause 500 million damage to Ye Chen. The current Hell mode is the real East Sea Dragon King, which is enough to deal 100 million damage. You know, the East Sea Dragon King is extremely powerful and is a mid-level god. Even without the power of faith, the damage is calculated in trillions. Ye Chen's defense is too amazing. He should be proud of the East Sea Dragon King's attack, which only causes 100 million damage. However, at this time, if he can't withstand the attack of the East Sea Dragon King, he will die. How can he be proud? Damn it, if I also have elemental changes. Ye Chen made careful calculations in his mind, his head was about to split, and he was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Elemental changes are not easy to use in the early stage, because everyone's resistance is not very high in the early stage. The later it is, the more powerful the elemental changes are. Ye Chen was moved by it, because with his high fire resistance, he could easily weaken the enemy's damage by hundreds of times. It was really awesome. However, elemental changes are a rare skill exclusive to shield warriors. Ye Chen couldn't learn it anyway. It's really tiring to fight a middle-level god. After a while, Ye Chen smiled bitterly and gradually regained his composure. The shadow assassination technique only lasts for 1 minute. In less than half a minute, he will not be able to dodge the attack of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. Taking advantage of the last half minute, Ye Chen rushed up and attacked at the same time with Xiao He, using a strong attack to break the dragon claw of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. In half a minute, the strong attack can be cooled down twice. In other words, Ye Chen can use 3 strong attacks in this half minute, and if Xiao He is included, it is 6 times. Soon half a minute passed. HowZaqian.com. Ye Chen and Xiao He broke the dragon teeth and claws of the 5-clawed golden dragon one after another. Of course, the 5-clawed golden dragon is huge, and Ye Chen and Xiao He can only break one dragon tooth or claw at a time. Immediately, the dark river disappeared, and Ye Chen could no longer teleport freely. I have done what I should do. If I still can't hold on, then I can only say that I am still honorable in defeat. Looking at the Dragon King of the East China Sea swinging his tail and rushing towards him angrily, Ye Chen smiled bitterly. He was just a holy domain, so even if he couldn't beat the middle-level god, there was really nothing to be discouraged about. At the last moment, Ye Chen added skill points to the indestructible body of the diamond, and added them madly. With 40,000 points of stiffness, he could barely hold on to the divine clone of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. Now it is the Hell mode, facing the real body of the Dragon King of the East China Sea. He has twice the strength of his own divine clone. In other words, Ye Chen needs at least 80,000 points of stiffness to hold on. Let's add it first. System, your indestructible body of the diamond has been upgraded, and it is currently LV12. System, your indestructible body of the diamond has been upgraded, and it is currently LV13. System, your indestructible body of the diamond has been upgraded, and it is currently LV30. Looking at the angry expression of the 5-clawed golden dragon, whose pupils rapidly expanded, Ye Chen took a final glance at the attribute bar and found that his stiffness had reached 82,500. With a slight smile, his eyes were stern, and he held the dragon's kiss horizontally and took it hard. Bang! With a deafening explosion, the five-clawed golden dragon and Ye Chen collided violently, stirring up smoke and dust. At the same time, Ye Chen was attacked at close range, and a strong shockwave instantly rushed out of his body, spreading 100 yards, and the walls around the palace were all blown down, raising smoke and dust all over the room. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, Ba Wang Shi-san. Chapter 629. -155000421. -69,000. As the smoke and dust rose in the room, two wounds appeared in the center of the collision between the five-clawed golden dragon and Ye Chen. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. The huge 15.5 million wounds were the wounds suffered by Ye Chen, who was killed instantly. And the 69,000 wounds were the rebound wounds of the indestructible body, which were borne by the five-clawed golden dragon. The damage of less than 70,000 should have been disdained by the East Sea Dragon King with a terrifying blood volume of 1,000 trillion, but in the thick smoke and dust, the East Sea Dragon King's angry screams resounded. After a long time, the smoke and dust dissipated, and the five-clawed golden dragon stood in the air, covering his lips with pain on his face. The forelimbs that were propped up and covered the mouth were actually bare, without a single sharp dragon claw. Looking down, I could not help but find that there were huge dragon teeth and claws scattered all over the open space directly below the five-clawed golden dragon. It was incredible. The shockwave that was just rebounded by the indestructible body only caused less than 70,000 damage to the five-clawed golden dragon, but it shook off all the dragon teeth and claws of the five-clawed golden dragon. Resurrection. The resurrection passive was activated, and Ye Chen got up again. The BFF disappeared, and Ye Chen, who only had 20% of his health, ran away. When he was far away, he looked at the miserable scene of the five-clawed golden dragon, and was surprised and ecstatic. Tisk tisk, Xiao He and I worked together to blow up the five-clawed golden dragon's dragon teeth and claws, and the damage of the golden dragon was reduced several times, and now, the five-clawed golden dragon's dragon teeth and claws are all gone. How many times will the damage be reduced? Ye Chen's mouth twitched, shocked beyond words. In his opinion, the five-clawed golden dragon should be able to cause 100 million points of damage to him. Just to blow it up, of course, with the improvement of the indestructible body of Vajra, his defense has also increased by hundreds of thousands, and when the five-clawed golden dragon hits again, he only receives 15 million damage. It can be seen that losing the dragon teeth and claws will greatly weaken the five-clawed golden dragon. And now, the five-clawed golden dragon's dragon teeth and claws are all gone. How much will the damage be reduced? Haha. The indestructible body of Vajra is really powerful. There is a chance, a great chance. Ye Chen laughed wildly. Boy, you did a good thing. I will not forgive you. On the other side, the five-clawed golden dragon roared continuously. Even though its attack power dropped countless times, it still angrily fired golden dragon bullets and madly shot at Ye Chen. Ye Chen died and resurrected, and the cooldown time of most skills was refreshed instantly. Shadow assassination technique. Ye Chen once again sank into the shadows, teleporting in various ways to avoid the golden energy cannon. At the same time, he took the time to activate BFF one by one. Armed hardening. Flame armor. Tyrant dragon pattern. Dochi. Blood blade. Wow. What skill did Ye Chen use just now? He actually shook off all the teeth and claws of the Dragon King. Look how angry the old Dragon King is. The teeth and claws of the five-clawed golden dragon are equivalent to weapons and equipment, right? Look, the damage of the Dragon King has decreased. Well, it should be the rare skill that Monkey King gave us when we left Huaguo Mountain. It's so powerful. Huaguo Mountain? Monkey King. Bosses, your adventure is so wonderful and enviable. 6666, now there is hope. I feel that Ye Shen can kill the Dragon King and get the first kill in Hell mode. Nonsense, what else do you need to say? The whole group was wiped out. Although the members died, they still had vision. Although it was a gray vision, it could be seen clearly. The current scene was seen by everyone, and they were shocked beyond words. They kept typing and chatting in the team channel to express their excitement. On the other side, Ye Chen's BFF was fully activated and rushed up again. With the blood-sucking effect of the blood blade, Ye Chen replenished his HP in an instant, and then teleported to dodge the attack of the five-clawed golden dragon while harvesting crazily. Suddenly, the HP of the five-clawed golden dragon dropped rapidly. Soon after a minute, the five-clawed golden dragon lost 1/10 of its blood, and there were about 900 trillion of life left. And Ye Chen's shadow assassination technique was cooling down, and the most critical moment came. If Ye Chen could withstand the attack of the five-clawed golden dragon head-on, then everything would be fine. It would only be a matter of time to kill the five-clawed golden dragon. If he couldn't withstand it, then everything would be in vain. Bang! Once again, Ye Chen and the five-clawed golden dragon collided fiercely. Without the shadow assassination technique, Ye Chen couldn't dodge the attack of the five-clawed golden dragon at all, so he just had to fight hard. -590, 4281. As the metal roared, Ye Chen was once again hurt, his body exploded, and yellow sand splashed. After handing over the sand clone, Ye Chen teleported out again, staring at the five-clawed golden dragon seriously. So that's it, even if the dragon teeth and claws are all dropped, the damage is reduced countless times. Is it still enough to kill me in seconds? Ye Chen looked at the five-clawed golden dragon, his eyes filled with a trace of admiration, but no longer afraid. Killing aura! Ye Chen shouted loudly, and a substantial dark red air wave surged out of his body, covering a radius of 50 yards. Then, he used the skill point again, madly accumulated the killing aura. System, your killing aura is upgraded, currently LV17. System, your killing aura is upgraded to LV18. System, your killing aura is upgraded to LV30. System, sorry, your killing aura has reached the maximum level and you cannot use skill points anymore. As the system prompts continued to sound, Ye Chen had already reached the maximum level of killing aura, which was LV30. At the same time, the red air wave filled with the smell of violent blood became larger and larger, and finally covered a radius of 100 yards, forming a killing field. Ye Chen and Xiao He overlapped, and at the same time activated the full level of killing aura, covering the five-clawed golden dragon, causing its all attributes to drop by 60%. Looking at the five-clawed golden dragon's somewhat terrified expression in the killing field, Ye Chen smiled slightly, his face full of confidence. Even without dragon teeth and claws, the five-clawed golden dragon could still deal nearly 6 million damage to Ye Chen, but now that the attributes have dropped by 60%, it can only deal less than 3 million damage. In other words, it can no longer kill Ye Chen instantly. As long as Ye Chen is not killed instantly, he will not die by using his blood-sucking ability. Tisk, I've spent more than 30 skill points to deal with you. Ye Chen stared at the five-clawed golden dragon and smiled grimly. Before arriving at the world ocean, Ye Chen had already killed the boss in Zhihai Xia, won the first kill, and obtained a large number of skill points. Until now, after spending so many skill points, he still has 133 skill points. Too many to use up. You know, Ye Chen is very generous. When he represented the throne and the Merchant Alliance and the King's Alliance, he gave dozens of first kills to Jian Wuhen. Otherwise, he would have at least 50 more skill points now. The strongest assassin in the server. Author, B.A. Wang Shi-san. Chapter 630. As leaders of war zones, every title holder is not simple. They are so powerful that they almost monopolize resources. Each Zhaihe in the war zone has 250 islands. If you kill the National Lord or National Gold Lord first, you will get 1 to 2 skill points. Ji Haixia and Ye Chen took almost all of them, but gave some to Jian Wuhen at the end. Ye Chen had so many skill points that he had already maxed out his powerful attacks. Now that he had used up a lot of skill points, he still had 133 points left, too many to use up. As for Sun Yang, he is now the title king, the god of thieves, but he is a rising star. He did not stand out in Zhaihaixia at the beginning, and has many fewer resources than other title kings. Searched can on Google. In addition to the skill points rewarded for the first kill, Zhaihe in each war zone will also receive many, low-level diamonds, intermediate diamonds, and high-level diamonds. Low-level diamonds increase the success rate of equipment embedding by 10%. Intermediate diamonds increase the success rate of equipment embedding by 20%. Advanced diamonds increase the success rate of equipment embedding by 30%. Ye Chen is currently equipped with Dragon Kiss Dagger, Heart-Searing Ring, and Gothic 7-piece set. Since the jewelry could not be set into puzzle pieces, Ye Chen completed the LV7 puzzle pieces with the Dragon's Kiss Dagger and the Gothic 5-piece set, equipment. Hat played the critical hit puzzle, and with the help of the Blood Tree's feedback, it achieved full critical hit. All other parts have been put into a strength puzzle, and with the feedback from the Blood Tree, the strength is increased by approximately 5,000 points. Ye Chen's current attributes no longer look down on the 5,000 points of power, but he dare not continue to inlay the LV8 power puzzle on it. Because when setting the LV7 puzzle, the success rate is only 70%. With a high-grade diamond, the success rate is exactly 100%. If you continue to inlay LV8 upwards, even if you use high-grade diamonds, you will only have a 95% success rate. Once it fails, the equipment will be destroyed. Ye Chen doesn't dare to gamble. Zhihai has high-grade diamonds. World Ocean, and even Wanghai, don't have even more top-grade diamonds. Ye Chen raised such doubts. Since coming to the World Ocean, his previous life experience has been completely useless, and he can only explore on his own. The world's oceans, the East China Sea, the South China Sea, the West China Sea, and the North Sea, should be similar. The more advanced one is Wanghai. Ye Chen has now arrived at the last stop of the East China Sea and can head to Wanghai at any time. In his opinion, there must be diamonds more powerful than high-grade diamonds in the world's oceans. If it doesn't exist in the four seas, then it must exist in Wanghai. If there is one in the four seas, then it must be in the hell mode of the four dragon palaces in the southeast, northwest, and northwest. Kill. After a wave of cooling, Ye Chen activated the Blood Blade, arm hardening and other BFFs, roared, and rushed towards the five-clawed golden dragon. The two sides collided fiercely again. Sure enough, in the field of killing, the five-clawed golden dragon was greatly weakened again. It could only deal 2 to 3 million damage to Ye Chen, and could no longer kill Ye Chen instantly. And Ye Chen's attack speed is so fast and the damage is so high that he can replenish the lost blood volume in an instant. The battle was one-sided. The five-clawed golden dragon is completely invincible and loses blood like crazy. It is only a matter of time before it dies. In addition, the five-clawed golden dragon's close attack will still trigger the rebound of the indestructible body, causing a series of terrifying shock waves. The shock waves spread over 100 yards, shattering the surrounding walls and turning them into ruins filled with debris and billowing smoke. The five-clawed golden dragon often only takes 69,000 fixed damage and doesn't take it seriously. As time passed, the five-clawed golden dragon seemed to be impacted hundreds of times. Suddenly, another shockwave swept out from Yuchen's body. When the five-clawed golden dragon received this impact, it suddenly felt like it was struck by lightning. The whole body trembled. Ho ho ho! As the angry and painful dragon roar sounded, the five-clawed golden dragon's slender body seemed to be skinned. The tough dragon scales cracked inch by inch, and golden blood filled the air. Minus 69,000. It was still a fixed damage of less than 70,000, but the dragon scales cracked and the five-clawed golden dragon's defense plummeted. If dragon teeth and claws can be regarded as the weapons of the five-clawed golden dragon, then dragon scales can be regarded as the equipment of the five-clawed golden dragon. Without weapons, attack power decreases. Without equipment, defense is reduced. As expected, Yuchen's damage increased sharply. After a few minutes of frantic attack, the five-clawed golden dragon was covered in wounds, as if there was no good piece of meat. He was dying, with only a trace of residual blood left. The indestructible body is a passive skill. As long as it is attacked at close range, it will bounce back a shockwave. And this shockwave seems to have only a certain chance of damaging the enemy's weapons and equipment. Yuchen thought to himself, now that his indestructible body has reached LV30, the probability of the shockwave generated to damage the enemy's weapons and equipment does not seem to be very high. It was just luck that the five-clawed golden dragon's teeth and claws were knocked off in the first round. As soon as he thought of this, Yuchen's back couldn't help but be soaked with cold sweat. With the indestructible body of LV30, the chance of shattering the enemy's weapons and equipment is only about 100%. If he hadn't been lucky enough to knock off the teeth and claws of the five-clawed golden dragon, he would have definitely died. Tisk tisk, LV30 has only a few percent chance, so even if it is maxed out, there is number 100% chance of shattering the enemy's weapons and equipment, right? Sure enough, I am very lucky. Yuchen smiled secretly, feeling very lucky, and then changed his mind, and continued to use skill points to attack the Vajra indestructible body. 133 skill points. It's better to use them first. And Yuchen likes the Vajra indestructible body skill very much, and he will max it out sooner or later, otherwise he will max it out now. System, your Vajra indestructible body is upgraded, and the current level is LV31. System, your Vajra indestructible body is upgraded, and the current level is LV32. System, your Vajra indestructible body is upgraded, and the current level is LV100. Vajra indestructible body, special skill passive effect, defense add 1 million points, stiffness add 100,000 points, when attacked at close range, it will rebound the maximum basic damage, and there is a certain probability of destroying the enemy's weapons and equipment. Active effect, instant, summon a golden body to protect the body in a short time, with stronger defense. No matter what kind of attack it receives, it will reflect the shockwave to attack the enemy, and has a high probability of destroying the enemy's weapons and equipment. Duration is 5 seconds, cooldown time is 600 seconds. Hiss. So strong. Yuchen glanced at the effect of LV100 Vajra indestructible body and gasped. As a passive skill, after upgrading to LV100, it actually adds an active skill, golden body protection. Yuchen suddenly remembered that there was a ferocious golden monkey protecting the body outside Monkey Brother's body, which was extremely domineering.